Hello everyone, it is me, Gen Z, and it's time to play Pokemon Conquest. Before we take on the last territory that's remaining in our reach that is of Nobunaga's control, I just want to take one more episode to train up our Pokemon. And for a change here, I'm going to do it at normal speeds. This is largely in part to the fact that we really don't have to do that much training. It's only just a more surefire way for me to claim victory, this way that I don't have to look back at a loss at that kingdom and say, oh, what could have been if only I trained a little bit more. So here it is, a little bit more. And with these training episodes, most oftentimes comes a story from my real life. So here's today's. A while back I mentioned that I know a real life Pokemon trainer, if you could even consider him a Pokemon trainer, but if Pokemon were real, he would be definitely considered one. He's my friend Juan Marufo. He's actually got his own YouTube channel, Roperman Ranch. I do the videos for that channel too, so that's my work, but that's his roping and riding. And he is a equine trainer. He's a horse trainer, so in the Pokemon universe, that would be a Rapidash trainer, or a Ponyta trainer. But also in Pokemon lingo, he's had the chance to train... Oh, what else has he trained? He's trained Zebstrikas, he's trained Tauros, he's trained Bouffalants. Freaking Bouffalants. And if you want to know the real world term for that, it's a buffalo, man. He's trained buffalo. He even taught it to do this thing called team penning, which if you're not in the horse world, I don't expect you to know what that is. Basically what it is normally is riders on horseback, but in this case, buffalo back, get into a ring with a herd of cows that are all numbered. And the person at the podium calls out two random numbers, and then it's usually a team of two people, but you can do it as one person if you want to go for an extra challenge. And once those numbers are called, you find the calves in the herd and try and single them out into a smaller pen, which is usually hard to do for some people. But when this guy was riding his buffalo after these calves, half the pack went into that tank, and they were like, whoa, we don't want any part of this. We don't care if that thing is perhaps a relative of us. We want no part of it. But his work really makes me sit back in awe of just some true magnificent training, because, you know, we always think in the Pokemon world that, oh man, wouldn't it be amazing if Pokemon were real, and you know, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could have true adventures? And yeah, sure it would be if everything was hunky-dory utopian, as it is tending to be in the anime. But the reality of training any kind of organism that has its own willpower and has its own agenda, I suppose you could say, whether that's an agenda of sitting around and eating grass all day, or just not having you on its back, not having to do any work. You know, I actually ran into him. We met up because I had sold one of my ponies, and this pony was a wretch. I don't know if anybody here has raised any sort of equine before, but ponies, they seem to have some sort of inferiority complex. You know, they didn't quite make it to full horse size, so they have to be extra dickable. I don't know what it is with ponies, but many that I've met have had that kind of feature on them. So we sold our pony, got rid of it, and you know, we decided we have a Frisian as well to get that Frisian some training because it's still a baby. And then Juan came and broke the unridden horse that was a baby up until then, never had a saddle on its back, in less than a week. So that was really incredible. And then I decided to keep doing videos for him. And ever since then, it's made me think about what it takes to really be a true trainer, what it takes to be a master at your trade, because, okay, we can't all be true life Pokemon trainers just because, well, science really should not create these creatures artificially. I highly believe that they should leave it as is. But what I can take away from it, you know, from talking to this guy so much, because, you know, I try to gauge what he's doing. How does he master these horses so marvelously? You got to really check out his work on Roperman Ranch to see what I'm talking about. I mean, he has these horses in the palm of his hand like silly putty, and they are no problem at all for him. And these are 1,000-pound animals we're talking about here, people. These are not kitty cats or dogs that we're trying to train to jump through hoops. He is getting them to do these complex movements. He does this thing called the Spanish walk, where the horse extends its leg, and it's like taking a long stretching step. It stretches out each time it takes a step. It's a pretty cool walk. And he also gets it to do a dance as well, where it's doing a walk and dance. It's called the piaffe, and there's also the passage. Really do wonder, I'll be looking at the comments for sure to see who of Pokemon knows what I'm talking about, just to see who my horse people are out there. But he also has stood on the backs of horses and done rope tricks, full on, just stood up and whirled around the rope. If anybody hung around horses as long as I have, you would know that that is a damn hard thing to do, because so many horses, even though they're huge animals, are really timid. You know, surprisingly for such a large animal, it's not brazen at all. It's very cautious, and it's easily frightened. In fact, deer are some of the worst enemies of horse owners, because they end up ruining your ride just jumping around in the forest there because the horse hears something, maybe catches it out of the corner of their eye, and then they don't know what it is, so they start freaking out. But not with this guy. No. He's got them mastered. And what it seems to come down to is constant daily practice, which I was very satisfied to hear. You know, it's not any big secret. It's not anything that is like, oh, well, I'm just the man, so, you know, obviously this horse is going to be good. No, you know, he broke it down for me. He is an original cowboy. I'm talking a cowboy before there was such a thing as Wild West. You know, who was here in America before we decided to, you know, quote-unquote colonize or really take over the place? It was the Native Americans and Mexicans. So he's a original cowboy, you know, and his family comes from that lineage of people who have worked with horses as a way of life. You know, you just cannot get around in Mexico unless you have a vehicle of a horse. So ever since he was a kid, he's been on a horse. Ever since he's been a baby, you know, his dad had held him on a horse, and he's been growing up and living in that for his entire life. So he has this natural affinity for it, and he has this way of speaking to these animals that have no speech. And in a very succinct way, I think that's exactly what a Pokemon trainer in real life would be like. Having a bond with your creature, whatever it would be, whether it's a Rapidash, whether it's a horse, whether it's a Pikachu, whatever it would be. You have such a bond with that creature that there is no need for words. Just the slight actions and movements of the trainer will signify to that Pokemon or real animal of what to do. And that's how this guy works. It's really interesting to see. I highly recommend going out to see anyone who trains or works with animals, because it can kind of give you an idea of what it would be like to work with Pokemon. Definitely it would not be as easy an experience as it was portrayed on the anime. It definitely takes a lot more discipline, but it can be translated, at least the discipline element, to doing anything successfully. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you sit with science and how big a Pokefan you are, we'll never be able to train real Pokemon. But we do get these digital creatures to train, and we do see how strategy comes into play. And I only know this knowledge because I, much like my friend Juan, I didn't grow up with horses. Well, I did grow up with horses, but that's a different story. But my main interest was Pokemon. I kept that interest throughout my whole life. I had been studying, I suppose you could say, but I didn't even know I was studying. I was just having a good time since I was in kindergarten with these creatures. And now I have an innumerable bond with them that never lets me forget the 600 plus Pokemon that are there and how they all interact with one another in this universe that is the Pokemon world. And it's great because it grows a lot larger with the community there, so that there are equally disciplined trainers that will battle you and prove how much a good time of training and good effort in investing time to battle other trainers, because if you don't try and if you don't battle, you will never win. It will show you that all that time investment really does amount to something and makes you a master at your trade. So again, do check him out, Roperman Ranch. That channel is pretty freaking amazing, and if you want to see what it's like to maybe train a Rapidash, if Rapidash was a real creature, definitely go check it out. But that does it for today's episode of Pokemon Conquest. In the next episode, we're going to take on Avia.